One thing we've noticed as we come to the end of the Space Shuttle program is that our spares situation has become a problem. And the reason for that is over the course of the years, we've had specific vendors that have built very specific flight hardware for us, and those vendors in a lot of cases are no longer around. They've gone out of business, and so we don't have the capability to continue to build the pieces and parts that we need to keep the shuttle flying. So we have a very limited amount of hardware out there. And so what that's causing us to do is either go find another vendor that can build our parts per specification, or just continue to upgrade and maintain what we currently have and share hardware between vehicles when required. So the big thing for us is if we only have a certain number, we have 3 vehicles, 3 orbiters, if we only have 3 components and one vehicle has a problem with theirs, well, then we're forced to do what we call cannibalization, and that is to take the part from another orbiter and give it over to what we call the higher priority vehicle. The next one in line to fly obviously has the highest priority. And so in doing that, that increases our risk for the other orbiter as well, because now I'm going in or I'm removing a perfectly good piece of hardware that's functioning fine, and I'm removing it from, say, Discovery to give over to Endeavour. Well, I can then in turn take the risk of collateral damage or any other situation where I'm now getting Discovery out of a good flight configuration in order to help Endeavour be ready to fly. Some ways that we've looked at that where you could potentially improve a situation is to use more common hardware. Set some standards so that when you're requesting your vendors to build hardware, they're using very standardized components. And I'm talking connectors, washers, screws, nuts, bolts, those kind of things. So that when you get to a point where you're farther down the line and you're needing to replace parts, you're going to have a higher chance of finding a vendor that actually has these parts in hand. Because if they're building them for someone besides NASA, then there's a bigger, grouping of hardware out there. More customers means more hardware, more to choose from for us. You also, by standardizing what connectors they use and using a standardization that's common in industry, common in the military, that allows us, when we do get into a bind where our particular vendor is no longer making those components, we can find replacement components that meet those specifications. May not be made by the same vendor, may not have the same part number, but they're comparable, and we can prove that they will meet our needs and give us the required connections that we need for that particular black box. Another way I can see to mitigate the spares issues that could become a concern would be if you basically had a test bed, a model, or I don't know what you would want to call it, but basically another vehicle that has all these components there. So you kind of get 2 advantages out of that. One is there's your test bed to provide you the opportunity to troubleshoot and investigate things without using the actual flight hardware. Secondly, you then, if you get into a pinch and you need a component, there's your extra part that you need. And so then you can take the time to hopefully build the next piece to refurnish your test bed and continue flying and processing your vehicles in parallel with that. So that would prevent a lot of the cannibalization that we have to go through right now. The other thing would be to have enough spares to begin with so that you're predicting out far enough and you know how long you're going to be flying, know how long your parts are going to last, what's their time and cycle situation, how long can this component be used before you have to scrap it because it's been worn out, and then have enough on stock that you're not having to pull from other vehicles. At this point in time, even if we do have spares somewhere that we can get our hands on, that's still a little bit of a lengthy process because our logistics folks have to go find those pieces and parts. A lot of times we can get them from, say, the military or from a vendor in California or whatnot, but it's a matter of actually finding out where that adequate spare is located. If it's not here at KSC, we then have to go kind of in a search mode. So if we had a database that allowed us to keep the information on those spares in one location so that our logistics folks could then very easily pull up a part number of a connector and have it list for them, well, I don't have this part number, but part number XYZ is compatible and we have that part number out at Honeywell facility and we can, ship that back to you. That kind of thing. That would definitely speed up the processing timeline. Once again, it's all about how quickly can I find the problem, can I find out what the fix is, and then get the pieces, the parts, the paper down to the technicians on the floor so they can actually execute the fix and we can move on with processing.